enrolled on the part-time BA primary early childhood degree programs, on which myself and Mrs. Gatsi take part in teaching our BA students. Right. What's the purpose of this needs assessment which we are conducting? We wish to provide a focus for the training workshops for practicing teachers, which, if the funding which we are applying for is obtained, can be conducted in partnership with the Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education. And we are quite happy to note that we have researchers from the Center for Education, Research and Innovation Development at head office. A powerful team of 5 officers. We just had the director of CTETS with us, and we hope that the ideas which will emerge from this needs assessment can be used to conduct some training for teachers. Right. And more immediately, for our BA and ECT programs, we want to get student input. We just had the director telling us that pupils asked him why they stopped assessment. Sometimes we do curriculum reviews without involving important stakeholders. And we believe our BA primary early childhood education students are important stakeholders. And this will help us improve the content which is offered on those programs. Right. That's the second aspect of this presentation. I alluded to. Right. This just gives us a background information of what is the ECT degrees are all about. They are of course offered by DTE, and they are offered to graduates of primary school teachers colleges. These are certificates, diploma of education holders who come to use that to upgrade their degree qualification. This means they are already qualified teachers. They are practicing teachers. So we are lucky that we have this sample to conduct research with, and they are participant researchers. In the course of our teaching, we hold focus group discussions, we give them tasks, and as we evaluate those tasks, we get to know areas which they may be deficient in, and we also ask them their views on the curriculum. In fact, we developed a questionnaire instrument which we administered to about 50 students comprising BA primary and BA ECT. Right. And we are getting very interesting responses, but it's ongoing, and we can only say that the results we are getting are not definitive, they are emerging. So we will not give definitive conclusions, but only suggest that we are getting these pointers. However, we are still waiting for permission from the Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education to visit schools for purposes of the needs assessment. As you are aware, the ministry requires that you apply for permission and obtain it before you visit schools. So we are imploring our colleagues that when the president of this country says we are open for business, it should also mean we are open for research. Unfortunately, there's a lot of bureaucracy, and it takes a very long wait to get this permission. Just like it used to take, it's stopped now, it used to take a long time to get permission to invest in this country. But you want quick decisions, and then you get also a piece of money. I'm sure we'll get the permission, because what we are doing is noble. I don't think we are undermining anybody. Research is important for business, and the important aspect of business is the development of human capital, and there can be no bigger business than that. All right. Right. And there are a number of cutting things in the curriculum, such as safety. Just highlighting what is in the syllabus. I won't spend a lot of time on that. I want to move on to the findings. Those who are familiar with the syllabus will be aware of what the cutting and cross-cutting things are. The food security, health and environmental issues, we have technology. In other words, it cuts across all subjects, right? And when we teach science and technology, we take cognizance of that. Although the syllabus is called, say, infant level mathematics and science, technology is part of it. And we'll see in the topics we have technology as well in the topics. So you should not wonder that we don't have a name technology in the syllabus. It's called the science in junior. The themes inform us. There's also sexuality, HIV, which the PVC talked about, area, heritage, Nakayeru, culture. Yes, we're talking science, but we should not forget that it occurs in a cultural context and with the heritage, which we are proud of, and which we also promote in our science teaching. For example, there's a lot of science which was went into the building of Great Zimbabwe, a lot of calculations, a lot of measurements. That immense structure did not just emerge through random laying stones. There was planning, science, knowledge of the properties of those granite rocks and cutting the tools, etc. Right. So there's a number of aims there. We want the syllabus 6 to help students appreciate the role and impact of science and technology as they apply to self-work in society, and and use a wide range of materials and components in the environment. We saw again that at the beginning slide where that young pupil is in the garden, that's in the environment. There are a lot of components in the environment which can be used in the teaching of sciences. Developing creative and technical and practical expertise to participate in the scientific and technological world. And the students will also demonstrate innate talent that leads to originality and innovativeness. Creativity again, which the director was talking about. That's what those are some of the aims of this syllabus. Manipulating materials and equipment to enhance creativity and right, where I put they are sharing, these are again trends, the areas which our student teachers, who are saying actual teachers, are saying are problematic, developing critical evaluation skills in technical, aesthetic, economic, environmental, social, and cultural context. Now, that syllabus aim is taken directly from the document. Now, when we're discussing this with our BA students, they will be highlighting that this is problematic. We take note of that, that's what they're saying, but we are not necessarily taking that as a conclusion of the result, but it's an emerging trend. We will triangulate with what happens in the schools and what we will also get from the schools when we visit them. So that's why we're saying it's imaging every time. But I will summarize at the end some of the things which we've looked at. We explore all those sense of self-reliance, enterprise, and community development things. They are not finding that problematic at the moment. However, relating moral and ethical approaches to the use of scientific principles and technology, or Ubuntu, they are saying, how do we do that? So these are some of the things which is the workshop is organized. Perhaps those who are experts in Ubuntu and science and morality and ethical approaches can assist teachers on how best those aspects of our philosophy can be incorporated into the learning situation. Right? And then also debating the consequences of outcomes of scientific and technological processes. They're saying they're finding that difficult to implement. And that's why collecting and recording the relevant data and information through scientific research. I think think even some of us here who are doing PhD degrees are finding that difficult. But again, that's a question of the level. But if you really the guy that is supposed to collect the code, the actual information, and that stage research, it is not, we believe, carefully explained to teachers through teachers' guides and relevant curriculum material. Teachers like fear that topic or that aim, which is just going to say this or so. Objectives, identify tools and materials. Right, interpreting, analyzing tables, charts, graphs, and using them, conducting investigations. Our teachers, even teachers, are saying that it's problematic to them. Designing, modifying technological devices using local and other materials. I think that's an area which, in our private discussion with Dr. Kwaya, is enlightened me on how that can be done. And I think this we need to share that with teachers. Some of this appears very statistical, and teachers want assurance that it can be done. And maybe examples of how it can be done. Right? Even using local materials, design, objects, that again. As I proceed with this presentation, now these are the topics which we find difficult, but I'm highlighting that I'm trying not to present the full paper, but to rush to the main tentative findings, so that we have more time for discussion. But make sure the structure highlighted that is a topic which we have been informed is difficult. Electricity and electronics. You will note that these are topics which, when we were growing up, we never growing up ourselves. We never did science, physics, or chemistry. The colonial authorities thought if we taught those subjects, we might become dangerous terrorists and start blowing up things. So we only did nature study. We were told that a butterfly, so many wings, so many legs. That was they had limited exposure to these aims, objectives, and content during their diploma studies. And the beauty of doing action research is when you give your students tasks, you can also tell that they have this foundation knowledge or foundation content or not. It's very easy to establish through action research. Right, the difficult topics. Right, those are topics they found difficult. Right, and very easy to just summarize. Right. Okay. Now these are the emerging traits. Now, the emerging traits, which I said I'm cautious not to call them conclusions. Our students, and by implication, lots of students out there who are diploma holders appear to be inadequately prepared for many of the aims, objectives, topics, and teaching methods of the new curriculum during diploma cycles at college. There's very limited use of local resources and improvisation of students. In the area slides, there's talk of we don't have laboratories, we don't have chemicals, we don't have this and that. It's true that we don't have that. But it was demonstrated the local environment, science, yes, it benefits from laboratories, but science is the world around us. The whole world is a laboratory. And we could use resources which are available, like water, containers, soap. There are lots of things which can be used to do experiments at school level. And there's one student of mine, unfortunately, he could not get permission to come to do the presentation, who is looking at the use of local materials at a rural school to conduct experiments at primary school. He's a grade 3 teacher. So we need to explore those areas. And lastly, we need more resources, such as computers. If we are going to ICT in our schools, we cannot do that without having a lot of computers. Even here in the university, we are told we are going the ICT, but many of us don't even have ICTs there. I mean, we don't have computers. If you don't spare your own money to buy your own laptop, you are not having access to that. So it's a big challenge, and we are hoping that funders, government, and other well-wishers will provide us with that. We are cognizant, of course, of government efforts in the past to provide donations, but perhaps much more money needs to be channeled in that area. But be that as it may, we are also recognizing that science, effective science learning, can also occur while we await that equipment. And then in-service training workshops for practicing teachers. These again is an area we think if we get funding, cooperation between ourselves, the two ministries, we should be able to hold those training workshops. In fact, the DHs themselves is planning for those training workshops, and they say they want to be certified. They don't just want attended courses, but they want courses, short courses where their competence can be certified. And if we train in a small initial group through the organs of the ministry, the districts, the provinces, the inspectors, I think that training can then diffuse to the rest of the country. And for ourselves, yes, we do need curriculum reform. And it's the nature of these deliberations which we are having come to the same positions which we are getting from our students. I want to thank you very much. I hope I have not exceeded my time.
Thank you very much, Dr. Namasaso, for that presentation. It's always an area of concern for teachers or even parents when they get to hear that teachers are failing to adequately handle content. And I myself, as a parent, I think would really take issue with such things. So we appreciate the presentation that we've had, because it is undergirded by research. So there is research evidence that something needs to be done. There were critical areas of concern, two of which that I picked, which is the inadequate preparation of teachers at pre-service training, and also the lack of resources. It's a story that keeps on emerging time and time again, but as Dr. Namasaso was presenting, he did highlight that we have to find alternatives to these issues concerning resources. At this point in time, we'll allow for 1 or 2 questions for Dr. Namasaso. Suggestions, comments. There's a question. Yes. An introduction as well as so that before you give us your question.
Okay, I'm Jinjirai Saka, a research professor from Zimbabwe Open University. But this is my home, because I came from here. It's not a question, really. Probably it's a combination of a question and a comment. There was a lot of emphasis on training in the presentation by Dr. Namasaso. I'm always worried when it comes to the question of training. I believe we are having these problems precisely because our teachers were trained. And by and large, we are still training them instead of developing them professionally. Because a trained person would require retraining whenever new developments emerge. So, but a developed person will always have the skills and know-how or competence to deal with the new situation. Because training focuses on specific competencies and say, this is how the thing should be done. And when the situation changes, the person is stranded. So, because in most cases, I remember paralleling with the former Education Minister, David Colton, at the launch of a book that I co-authored not long ago, when he was talking of training. And I said, look, I believe that during the colonial era, teachers were trained. And then after, when we got our independence, I thought we were going to move away from training. But training is to continue anyway, it's a component of development. But it appears we continue to, because he was arguing that all the teachers in the schools, primary and secondary, needs retraining. Then I said, that is precisely where the problem is. Because we are training instead of continuous renewal of professional development. Thank you. It's a comment.
Okay, thank you for the comment. There's another question.
research documents, research applications. I would want to say that there has been a great improvement on that one. For EED applications and FED applications, we now take at most 2 days. For PhDs, a maximum of 1 week. And that's a great improvement to those who will be submitting the applications. So, Doc, please, there's an improvement. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Innocent Chishumba. I am a research officer from Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education in the Center for Research, Innovation and Development. Perhaps my question is, before these teachers who are now doing BA, these primary school teachers, are enrolled in our colleges, what were the entry requirements, particularly with special reference to mathematics and science in their enrollment to train as a teacher, perhaps for the benefit of some of us?
I will give Dr. Namasasu a chance to answer questions and also respond to comments that were given by Professor Chisaka and other gentlemen from the university.
Thank you very much. I will start with Professor Chisaka's comments. They are taken. Yes, we should be doing continuous development, and so that they continue to improve. I think perhaps the error is one of continued use of terminology. What we intend to have is really continuous development. But you see, all targets die, they exist, and perhaps this is what is happening. But we are on the same page. We want to have continuous development. You will note that in the case of, say, in the medical profession, pharmacists, even nurses, you may not call it training, but they go for seminars, redevelopment, because medical technology is fast changing. What you were exposed to at nursing college 5 years ago may not apply to new diseases. Similarly, even those teachers who were at college 5 or so years ago, there are new challenges. There is new content. There are new methodologies which they were never exposed to. So this is the spirit in which we want this continuous development of teachers to occur. And yes, I also welcome Mr. Mazulu's assurance that the applications are now taking a much shorter time. But I will assure you, the audience, that when we applied for this, for permission to do this preliminary needs assessment, we were hoping actually to be presenting also findings from the schools. But it has taken forever. Even up to now, we don't have the permission. We know we're going to get it, but it has even compromised this presentation. Because we would have loved to say, we got this from Group A, Group B schools, even though it's tentative. But I know, like I said, we are going to get it, and this assurance is good that they are also going to speed up the process. We're not saying all applications should be accepted, but it's also important to get a quick decision so that people move on. Right, and then on the entry requirements, the question asked by Mr. Chishumba, ordinarily we require 5 O-level passes, including maths, and I'm not sure about science in primary school, but it's an area which needs to be looked at, that in future all applicants should have science. And we should also encourage the O-level sciences to be strong, such as physical science or biology, chemistry, and physics, that provides sufficient background, right? So we have that. There have been rumors that some people find their way to colleges and so forth somehow, but we are not, these are, I think they remain rumors. We don't have concrete evidence that unqualified people go to colleges. And those are the responses. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We now move on to the next session. I will call upon.
Also, in the interest of time, since we have colleagues who travel outside of Harare, in the country, let's be as brief as possible in our presentations, our comments, our questions. Let's not make more presentations. With that, ladies and gentlemen, our next presentation is chaired by Mr. Bishop. May we then our presenter. There are two presenters, Dr. Mafunga and Dr. Karingi. Kabilinge. Sorry, Kabilinge. Are we here?
If they are not, we just move on.
We just move on to the next presentation.
Just take note that they are not
here. Next presentation, Dr. Mary, please come and give us what we deserve. What we've been waiting for. The title of the is the narrative of a shift in the metaphysics teaching in Zimbabwe schools, a case for teaching through problem solving. Okay. Introduction, we'll look at what mathematics is, the nature of mathematics, because I don't think there's much point talking about how it should be taught. We're talking about how it should be taught without clearly having a clear idea of what it is. Then we'll also look at ways of teaching mathematics. We'll contrast the teacher-centered approach to the constructivist approach. And then, still in introduction, we'll look at which of those two is the predominant approach that is being used in our schools in Zimbabwe. What is mathematics? I like this definition. There are some who actually believe that mathematics cannot be defined, but that's silly. How can we be teaching something which we cannot define? It can be defined, but of course, as many, as we are aware in education, rarely is there a common agreement. But the generally agreed definition of what mathematics is has some elements, or has all the elements of what is in that definition, which says mathematics is a reasoning and creative activity, employing abstraction and generalization to identify, describe, and apply patterns and relationships. And that I took from the New South Wales curriculum 2015. New South Wales is in Australia. So what I want to emphasize some certain aspects in that definition. The reasoning part, the creative part, and also this issue of patterns and relationships is at the very heart of what mathematics is. But as we will see later on as we go further into the paper, we just wonder what if that is what is happening in the classroom. Is that what is being taught in the classroom? The teacher-centered approach, I don't think that needs much introduction. It's called teacher-centered because the teacher dominates. In a typical classroom, the teacher explains everything. Generalizations, formulae are just given, and a lot of time and effort is spent on real work and problem solving. If there's any at all, is of the routine type. Routine type is the type of problem which, after the teacher is demonstrated, you just follow the steps that the teacher is followed, and you apply them. Has any reasoning taken place? Has any creativity taken place? The teacher, even the teacher is not done in reasoning, probably. He's just looked at a textbook and just followed what is in the textbook. So within the classroom, you say, not much reasoning is taking place. We're just taking some reasoning and creativity from somewhere and transmitting it to the learners. The constructivist approach is called constructivist because learners are expected to construct their own meaning. The teacher is supposed to be an enabler of learning and is expected to create the correct environment, the conducive environment for learning, and for providing the appropriate stimuli for learning to take place. Learners in a constructivist classroom have opportunities to explore, to discover, to conjecture, to discuss, to justify, and to solve non-routine problems. We'll explain further on what we mean by non-routine problems. It doesn't mean, by the way, word problems. It means a lot more than that. What about in Zimbabwe? I think we all agree that typically the teacher-centered approach is what prevails. Reasons. What are the reasons for this? They will tell you that it's a very effective approach. It's an approach which doesn't waste a lot of time, and that in any case, especially those champions who produce good results, it has worked for them. So what's the problem? Over the years, they're churning out good results. So what's the problem? Why should we change? But how valid are these reasons? Are these reasons so valid that we should not change? Is passing an examination, does that mean that you are creative, you are adaptable, which is required in the 21st century? Well, yeah, I did, of course, yes. When you pass the exam, it's assumed that you can do certain things. But that doesn't necessarily follow. Especially when you've gone through a whole 7 years at primary school level, where in classrooms that use a teacher-centered approach. So what are we proposing? What we're proposing is what I'm referring to as TMTPS, standing for Teaching Mathematics Through Problem Solving. It should be distinguished from teaching problem solving. I hope you see the difference. Because in mathematics, you can also try and teach what problem solving is, such how to solve problems in general. But in this case, what we're doing, we are teaching through problem solving. We'll also look at the justification, and then we'll look for suggestions in the classroom. What should be happening in the classroom where teaching through mathematics through problem solving is taking place. And we'll also look at some concerns associated with using this approach. Yes, I've already tried to define that TMTPS, a constructivist approach whereby mathematics is taught through problem solving. And one Matthew Aldridge in 2017 actually says the problems used, this approach is where problems are used as a means of what? Of delivering the curriculum. So you're actually delivering the curriculum through problem solving. What are the justifications for? How do we justify? Why should we change justifications? This approach is consistent with the nature of mathematics. Remember that definition of what mathematics is. The definition talks about what? Reasoning, creativity. It talks about generalization, abstraction, and applying mathematics. So teaching through this approach is consistent with that what mathematics is. It tends to bring meaning and purpose to mathematics learning. In actual fact, children actually start enjoying doing mathematics. I'm not saying there's not much enjoyment going on in the classroom, but there is some enjoyment, but say only a few learners who actually enjoy the sort of approach that is used in teaching mathematics. If we were using this approach we are recommending, then there will be more students who would actually enjoy learning mathematics. It also, research also shows that it tends to improve achievement. So those exams that so many people are worried about, these learners who go through this experience actually do better. By the way, this is not a hypothetical thing. There are some countries where they're actually doing this. Japan is one example, Singapore, and actually some American states are importing books from Singapore in mathematics because they use this approach. So this is not just something I cooked up, it's something which is actually happening in some classrooms. It is also consistent with the 21st century attributes that we would like to see occurring. The attributes that we would like to expect a citizen to have, which include adaptability, critical thinking, and problem solving. Just quickly go through this, but I think it's important, so I'll just run through. I think it's important that if you are using this approach, of course you have to understand the mathematics that you are teaching. You might need to even unlearn the mathematics that you think you know. Like some teachers believe that area is length and breadth. Those teachers actually believe that they know what area is, but of course they don't. Area is not length and breadth. It will mean that a triangle does not have area. It will mean that a piece of land which is irregularly shaped does not have area, which is ridiculous. So it might mean unlearning. What I would actually do is go back, when I'm going to teach something, I want to teach fractions, I actually look up what a fraction is from scratch, not assume that I know. Then when you've done that, as part of that process, you should also be very familiar with what should the learners know already for them to understand this new thing that you are going to teach. Then you need to develop problems that enable you to do that. You need to create, to find problems, to sort of think up problems that will help learners move from where they are to where you want them to go. I had 3 examples which I had, but I wasn't interested, but they will be in the paper, hopefully. I think I must stop here. Thank you very much for listening.
I will not try to summarize Dr. Levy's paper. Instead, I will go straight ahead and request questions. We'll start with 3 questions from the audience. Any questions on Dr. Levy's presentation?
Question. We are all aware that there's a high failure rate in mathematics in this country. Many people, in fact, don't like mathematics at school, avoid mathematics at all costs. I just wonder whether the shift in mathematics teaching in Zimbabwean schools could alter this trend, whether there's any research evidence or it's a hypothesis at this stage. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I noticed Dr. Levy's presentation that there's emphasis on 21st century skills and attitudes. I think perhaps that is in line also with the new curriculum. But I was wondering how do we get there with your teaching staff that are in schools already?
I will ask Dr. Levy to respond to those 2 questions.
Okay, the failure rate, there is ample evidence that learners actually start enjoying learning mathematics when this approach is used. And my colleague, Mr. Shu, we are working together on a program supported by Save the Children, where we are trying to help teachers to adopt this approach. And we actually saw firsthand children become excited and animated when this approach was being used by those who knew what to do. But so far they're not very many who can do it properly. But the evidence is there. And elsewhere also, not just in this country, there's ample evidence in research which shows that children actually start enjoying learning mathematics. Now imagine being a learner in a classroom where you're just being told one string of rules and things which you should follow, one after the other. I'm actually surprised that I survived that. I don't think I was anyway. But I suppose it depends on the character of the event. Some just enjoy it and all that, but the majority just wonder. And those who fail think, I must be stupid. They don't realize that it's because they're actually nonsense. It's not even mathematics that is being taught. Some other subject, which I have no idea what it is. And the second question, how do we get there? That's a very big question. In my opinion, you really need to persuade teachers to change. I was reading about a research where they were asking teachers about which approach is best to use. In all cases, talking about constructivist approach. But when it comes to technical classroom, you're implementing it. So it's difficult. But in this project I'm talking about, in one district, you actually think something is happening. Either the two is easy. But I think it can be done. But my opinion is that it should be done through persuasion. Teachers should actually begin to see that what they are doing, the pretense they are doing of teaching mathematics is a pretense. It's not teaching mathematics, it's teaching something else. So I think it's possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zé. We'll move on to the next presentation.
The next presentation reminded me of Kansime. You watched Kansime. She was invited to America to talk, to be a keynote speaker at a women's conference. So she says her mother asked her what she was going to do, and she tells her. So she told her. And the mother wanted to know how many people, how many women will be there. She says, 200 and above. And how many days? Say 2 days. So she just said, you are telling me 200 women want to say all those things in 2 days. Because she says when an aunt arrives, it takes a week to discuss issues of womanhood and leadership and things. So I thought to myself, these are 4 people, 2 men and 2 women, having to discuss issues of the integrating an integrated approach to teaching of design and technology at primary school in 20 minutes. That's worse than 200 women in 2 days. So I said, Dr. Mosi, to do that.
Thank you, Prof. Moyana. The reason why there are 2 men and 2 women in this particular presentation and preparation of this paper is because we wanted to bring in the integrated aspect as well. Because these are lecturers from different subject disciplines. So that is also the starting point of this integration. We are presenting a topic on how to teach design and technology in primary school. As Dr. Namasasu was presenting, he did highlight that there are issues, and we're actually quite excited now to see that the paper that we have generated can actually be some work that is going to continue, because there are issues regarding the teaching of this particular subject. we note in our introduction that design and technology is a new dimension that has been incorporated in the grade 3 to 7 primary school science and technology syllabus. Now, for us, this is a good development because the teaching of practical subjects is suddenly shown a very significant shift, because practical subjects have been taught using a craft approach, where it was a matter of observing what someone is doing and then you do that particular way. So when the teaching of practical subjects shifts to a design and technology approach, it means that it is now centered on problem solving. So we find that the aims of this syllabus are also critical in that they are inculcating key life skills, skills and competencies within the learner. And some of these key competencies are issues dealing with innovativeness, creativeness, adaptability, actually having learners that become creators of products rather than just copying things that are done by others. Our paper is exploring how the primary school teacher can use the integrated approach. Now, one thing that we've noticed in the new syllabus is that the science subjects such as home economics, textiles, food, metal technology, wood technology are no longer standalone subjects. They've been incorporated within the science and technology syllabus, such that when you go to it and you are reading it, you won't find anything relating to wood, you won't find anything relating to material, relating to metal or home economics. But we find that infused with that, within that syllabus, are still elements of this particular subject. So that's why we want to show how we can integrate the math, science, art, textiles, building, wood, metal, and food technology. Right, before we delve deeper into the presentation, we need to know what is an integrated approach. Literature has quite a number of definitions regarding integration. So we've selected a few where we have integration defined as an interdisciplinary approach. So we have subject areas, which in the syllabus are called learning areas. We have subjects which whose content or processes are being used to support learning. So we have these different subject areas, and then there are different domains, and then they are being used in a particular context, either within a task, an assignment, a project to support learning. We also have another definition, again, which is bringing out the issue of unity. Because in integration, you have got these separate domains of knowledge, which, if they are learned as separate, they can be learned as separate domains for mastery of knowledge. But when you are solving a problem, you need to draw on those different domains of learning. So we have this element of creating unity or an integrated whole as you approach a particular problem. Right, we find that an integrated approach is a good approach to use, particularly at primary school level. As you can see from our picture here, we have our learners who are working together. So the elements of being learner-centered, collaborative, and participatory is being exemplified in the photograph that we have here. So the learning becomes fun, comfortable, and within that you're also mainly concerned with the learner's interest, because you draw upon their interest as well. Right, there is value in using an integrated approach. So the justification, I won't go through almost all the areas, but anyway, to point out the key things, that there is ease of learning. It's easy to teach because you are relating to things that are in the world. There are multiple approaches that can be used within this problem solving, interactive, collaborative, and it is also participatory in nature, because that is what we want with that is what this new syllabus is directing us to have learning that is learner-centered, where there is active learning and where there is a lot of participation, and less of the teacher being in control of learning. It is also got the dimension of critical thinking. I think it was raised in a previous presentation. It gives learners room to create knowledge. This is where we want to get to. That is the point where we want to get to. And it focuses on basic skills, content, and also developing higher levels of thinking. And then, of course, it is interdisciplinary. In this case, the interdisciplinarity is being brought in by drawing from those subject areas which are mainly technical in nature. Every educational process must be undergirded by theoretical underpinnings. So we've got two, there are a number of theoretical perspectives that support integrated teaching. But for this particular paper, we've focused mainly on pragmatism, that is Dewey, and it's one of the first to actually introduce and recommend an integrated form of teaching through project work. And we also have socio-cultural learning theory from Vygotsky, which is actually an offshoot of constructivism. So active learning, again, the ability to construct knowledge. Both of these theories support the issue of integrating knowledge. And for Dewey, he sees it coming in, basically working with learners' interests, with the collaborative, inquiry-based activities. These provide conditions for integration of knowledge. And then with Vygotsky, as he was looking at how human development and also the thesis on how children develop cognitively, he does state in his theory that for development to occur, it must be done through an integrated system. So this genesis that he presents has implications for teaching, because from that it means that teaching and learning can be, the diverse domains of teaching can come together to form an integrated unit. So there is justification within the theory. Right, the critical matter of our paper is now how do we integrate, how do we use an integrated approach to design and technology. Right, first of all, we do note that design and technology is an action-based subject. So it's a subject that requires active learning, and the learner is the one that is at the center of this whole process. So we are suggesting that to integrate these subjects, we must integrate it through design and make assignments, design and make activities. Now these design and make assignments, tasks and activities have got particular features within them. Right, they must be problem driven with clear learning goals that are set by the teacher. The creative responses of the students must be supported somehow. So they are supported by a formal structure of well-taught concepts, information. They are also supported by procedural knowledge, that is the technical knowledge, the processes of doing something, the processes of constructing. That is essential. So in other words, we are saying there's two parallel forms of teaching that are going to be running within the classroom. There are situations where the teacher is going to be teaching the content, the concepts and knowledge regarding each of these elements of within the technical subjects. And then there are points at which these design and make assignments will come in so as to facilitate that integration. Now, another critical element is that there must be structured management of learning. Now, if somebody talks about problem solving and you say you are going to use problem solving in the class, there is a lot of misconception sometimes that it is very unstructured and not organized. But what is important is to offer it in a structured manner, such that there is a purpose and there is an outcome that is going to be derived from that learning. And it is critical to have adequate resources to facilitate the creative and critical thinking. And one resource that is essential to integration and design and technology is ICT technologies. So internet and all the different forms of ICT that we have are critical to this design and make assignment. And then finally, the teacher's role is that of enabling learners to have access to information. So it's enabling learners to go out and seek the information and not tell students that this is what you should do. So that is why that ICT is now important, because students, there is a wealth of information on the internet. So students can go and then search for that information. Right, we move on to giving examples of how this integration can occur. So we were drawing this from the syllabus and also the textbooks, the resource materials that are out there. Right, this is an example of a learning activity at grade 4 level. Now, when you are integrating, as I indicated in the previous slide, there must be clear problem specification. So within this, what is at the center here? This is the problem, or this is the design and make assignment that has been given to the students. So in this particular instance, this is a group of learners in grade 4 who have been asked to design and make a refreshing drink for a school trip using local food sources. So this is a problem because one, there is a purpose. This thing is going to be taken off to a class trip, and they've been given parameters that it must be refreshing and it must come from local food sources. Right? Now, when they now have to work on this problem, our paper is going to include all the other dimensions to it. A situation had been prevented earlier on, because according to this process that is here, you present a situation and then you present the problem. So as the learners are now working, we are now presupposing that they are now going to draw on all those different subject areas, where in environmental science, they go look up the content area or local food sources. They come to art, they have to know what color is appropriate, what color food is appropriate, what texture is appropriate. They come to food technology, where they have to draw on what they've learned, the processes and technology that is required to prepare and package that particular drink. And then they also draw on their science, because from their science they need to know the materials that will be suitable for packaging and transporting the drink. So the learners now have to think, are we going to put it in a plastic? Are we going to put it in a bottle? And if you go to their content area, there's a section where they're learning about materials in science. So they have to investigate. This is the design process that they follow through. I won't go into much detail, to be covered in our paper, but at the end of it all, we want them to come up with a prototype, which is the actual drink. And there's also, so this whole process is all problem solving. There's elements of critical thinking within this. There's elements of being evaluative. And when working in a group, it means that ideas will be drawn from the different learners and also from the content area. A good thing that has already occurred is that we have a group of teachers, I think about 60 teachers, that went through a program that was conducted within our department. The program which was in partnership with the Ministry of Primary and Secondary, where we have trained about 60 teachers, and most of those 60 teachers were coming from primary schools, where we trained them taught them on how to teach design and technology. So at least we have some teachers within the schools who have got the competency to deal with this particular subject area. Right, another example from the grade 7, right, in grade 7, if you go to their syllabus and you look at the content matrix, you find that there is a section where they deal with structures. So an example of a design and make activity that is relating to structures. So with us, in this particular case, it's design and make a rapid cage. There is a situation that would have been given, because the situation is not presented here, probably 10 rabbits and so on. So as the students are now, as the learners are now engaging with this problem, they are going to draw on the different technical subjects again, with art and graphics, where they've got to apply elements, principles of design. And then we've got agriculture. Although agriculture has not been indicated as part of the subjects within science and technology, because it's now a standalone subject, we did include it here because they can draw on that, because they've got to calculate things like living space for each rabbit, and things like sighting. And once again, materials are featuring, because they have to know how to select secure, safe, and durable materials. And within this, we see a combination of materials, because there's going to be wood, there's going to be metal, there's probably going to be textiles, there's also going to be building-related materials. And obviously, they are going to draw again on their processes and technology within metal, wood, building, to be able to complete this particular activity. And once again, the design process is featuring there, because that is the critical process students use to go through the tasks. And obviously, there should be appropriate methodologies, and the methodologies are all learner-centered, problem-solving approach, project-based approach, experimentation. As you see in that picture, we have got these very serious scientists who's ready to do serious business, probably coming up with the next fuel to fuel the cars, a sustainable fuel for the cars that we drive. And of research-based approach and case studies. And we have here a group of female students probably conferring on some issue. So these are the kind of approaches that we would actually want to see. Right, of course they are teaching principles, right, because everything has got to be guided by principles. Some of these have been mentioned in the previous presentation, so I won't dwell too much on them. But the critical element of actively engaging learners. So the teacher is a facilitator of learning. He enables the learning, and the student, the learner, is at the forefront. Communication is very important. Communicate clear expectations, particularly as you generate these different problems. The teacher has got to demonstrate passion, because there must be passion in teaching. Passion to teach design and technology, passion to teach science, even the mathematics. And also a lot of respect, because respect is something that our teachers need to deal with, because we are so used to being the authority figure. But now, this respect is also respect of the ideas that these little grade 4 and 5 students bring to the forefront as they are tackling these problems. Engage and encourage independence. We find that most times when we are teaching BEds, we've noticed that when these teachers come, they are so dependent on lecturers. So it takes a lot of time to actually wean them off so that they become independent learners. So I think it's a product of the system that we've all gone through. We also need to create learning communities, and obviously we must have appropriate assessment modes, because as you assess the design and make assignment, there must be an appropriate way of doing that. Use of portfolios, use of artifacts, use of exhibitions. That is a more appropriate approach to assessing anything that is done using design and technology. And obviously as well, a commitment to continuous improvement. Continuous improvement means that you have reflective teachers. Teachers have got to reflect on the processes, the methods that they are using in teaching. This reflective process is required continuously so that we continue to improve teaching and make it meaningful. Thank you for your attention.
I now understand why pupils asked the director why stop these tasks. You know, from the way Dr. Motsi presented those activities, preparing drinks, example, learning activity with rabbits, I think it's clear why pupils find this very, very interesting. But my question is, given the nature of our examination-oriented curriculum, is this not problematic? Perhaps those who are stopping these tasks are saying it will prevent them from completing the syllabus. Your comments, Dr. Motsi. Thank you.
Let's take another one.
Thank you, Dr. Motsi, for your presentation. Can we teach practical subject without involving the integrated approach? Or is it endemic within the technical subjects? Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Just say that's what the doctor wanted.
All right, Dr.
Yes, to respond to Dr. Namasasu, one of the things that kills the use of an integrated approach in any setting is the exam-oriented nature of our teaching. It has been raised in literature that it's problematic, not only in Zimbabwe, but also in other countries like Botswana, because they use an integrated approach to teaching design and technology. But I think the tasks that have been suspended are actually a way forward to the teaching of this design and technology. Because what we are saying is, after every unit, because I know that the content is handled in units, after completing 2-3 units, we then suggest that we have these design and make activities integrated within the assignments, so that it's not something that is only done at the end of a term, like what before. I think that was the format that was in the syllabus. So yes, it's problematic, but we need to encourage teachers to teach it more regularly within a given term. Then to respond to Dr. Tatira, technical subjects can be taught as separate subjects, particularly if we look at them as it is being done at high school or secondary school level. But within the new syllabus, they are no longer standing out as single technical subjects. So that syllabus has already brought within it this integrated aspect of teaching. The integrated aspect of teaching, we are saying it will come in mainly in the design and make activities, but there are opportunities within the syllabus to teach the technical skill, because that technical skill is still required. So we'll have sections within the syllabus where you teach the procedures and technology of handling each of those different technical subjects. And then to Mr. Madondo, yes, that's what the doctor ordered.
It can be done, but it's more exciting than trying to cram things. And to remember what the teacher's notes said. Thank you very much. I won't take much of your time. We practiced something like that through the English language, and students liked it. The only thing was that they were now showing off their skill. I'm going to present the paper towards a holistic approach in science and technology instruction for the hearing impaired, a challenge for Zimbabwean primary schools. I'm Esther Toro. In the introduction, Zimbabwe, as we all know, is undergoing a paradigm shift where we are driving towards a science and technology-based economy, and the changes started in the education sector, but there is still a gap that exists in special needs science and technology instruction. And in this paper, I'm looking at the problem or the challenge for the hearing impaired, and I'm going to refer to them as the HI learners, that is the hearing impaired learners. If we explore discussions on the issue of hearing impairment, you will see that they are mainly focused on language barrier, and we have very few discussions which are focused on issues like teaching of science and technology to the hearing impaired. In the background, I'm coming from an environment where I'm a lecturer in a teacher's college, and I go for teaching practice, and it is during the teaching practice where I have noticed that we have learners with hearing impairment either in inclusive classrooms or in specifically schools where we have only hearing impaired learners. It is during these visits where I noticed that performance of learners with hearing impairment in science and technology is very low compared to the performance of learners without hearing impairment. I've also noticed that their performance in other subjects is also relatively better than in science and technology, and the gap in that performance is quite wide with the hearing impaired learners than with learners without hearing impairment. In the statement of the problem, hearing impairment is facing quite a significant proportion of learners in Zimbabwe. And it is of great concern that these learners are facing overwhelming challenges in science and technology learning. But the challenge is now that as educators, we are doing very little to address this challenge or the gap that is existing in this learners' learning of science and technology. I'm going to leave out the research questions because of the time and the review of related literature, and I'm going to go to the findings. After going through a research, I found out that teachers showed that there is a disparity in performance by the hearing impaired learners in science and technology as compared to other subjects in the primary schools. And also the researcher found out that a gap exists because of the time lag that is experienced by learners in language acquisition from birth to the time they start schooling. When I was doing a literature study, I saw that from the researches which were carried out by other researchers, language acquisition is quite a big problem in acquiring skills for the hearing impaired, and also in acquiring knowledge, especially in subjects which have subject-specific jargon like science and technology. So you see that there is this gap that is existing because of the time lag. And some participants noticed that we have home factors as well as school-based factors which play a big role in the language acquisition, and this cascades down to the difficulties in comprehending science and technology concepts. Now I'm going to look at the home factors which affect the hearing impaired learners in science and technology. Home factors include time lag, as I said, in acquisition of language, as most parents and communities cannot use standard sign language. Most parents and communities just use the language that work, the signs that work for them. But science and technology should be learned from the very critical young age of these learners. As we see, even those children without hearing impairment, they learn science and technology from their parents as they experiment in the environment, as they experiment in building models. But these hearing impaired learners, because of lack of language of the parents to communicate with the hearing impaired children, the very critical stages of language development where they could have started developing science and technology concepts is ignored because of the impediment of language. So home factors, they are very critical in the time lag in acquisition of language for the hearing impaired, which affects their acquisition of science and technology concepts in later life. Then school factors that also affect the teaching of HI learners in science and technology. Teacher competence, I found out that teachers mainly or generally lack science and technology, sign language terminologies. Most teachers have to find some terminologies which they themselves can use in teaching this very important subject. And also teacher competencies in appropriate methodologies for science and technology for the hearing impaired. You see that teachers, they are coming from teachers' colleges where they are not trained in science and technology for the hearing impaired. Yes, we have a college where hearing impairment is being taught, but it's a general course. It's not concentrating on science and technology, how to teach science and technology to the hearing impaired learners. And then we have unavailability of relevant media for the hearing impaired learners because it's too expensive and at times it has to be imported. So you see that that media that is lacking also results in difficulties or challenges for the hearing impaired learners. Then we also have assistive technologies which are inadequate, and some teachers noted that the hearing impaired learners lack scientific reasoning because of the language gap. Then we are now looking at what I found out from this research on the way forward towards a holistic approach in science and technology instruction for the hearing impaired. From the findings, it is important that science instructors have to come up with appropriate intervention strategies to ensure that the HI learners are not left behind in the science and technology era. And from what I found out, there should be an integrated approach. I'm glad that the researcher who has just left the floor, he defined what integration means. So the integrated approach should include those 5 areas: home and community interventions, education system interventions, instructor aptitude interventions, resource interventions, and methodological interventions. I've looked at that approach diagrammatically, and from that diagram we see that those circles are intersecting. That means that each intervention is not independent from the other intervention. So the education system intervention, instructor aptitude intervention, where we have human capital development, educational resources intervention, methodological and home and community intervention, they should intersect in order for there to be that holistic approach in the instruction for the HI learners. Then I'm looking at these one by one. Home and community interventions, there is need for proactive policies in addressing the gap in families and communities to adapt to hearing impairment. I'm saying the hearing impaired learners cannot adapt to those people without hearing impairment, because for the hearing impaired, theirs is biological. But for those without hearing impairment, they have the biological capacity to adapt to the hearing impaired learners. So we should have proactive policies to address this gap in the families, so that a child is born within a family and a community which is empowered to deal with hearing impairment from birth. Thus, there should be community education and awareness on standardized sign language, so that communities will do an effective socialization process in standard sign language development from an early stage. I think the problem is that sign language, standard sign language, starts when a learner is already in school. But before that, every individual, every family is just using the sign language that works for them. So when they get to school, instead of learning the science and technology jargon, they have to start learning the language. So mixing learning the language and learning the jargon becomes difficult for the hearing impaired learners. Then education system intervention. I propose that the education system should have a course on living with disabilities from ECD level throughout the education system. This is meant to empower and integrate everyone in the world of the HI learners or the HI individuals. This course has to include early detection of hearing impairment, signs and symptoms, standard sign language as part of the language course. That is, there should be a course on sign language. Everyone should be empowered to talk to the hearing impaired learners so that they can integrate fully within a community. And then when they start learning the standard SMT courses within the school system, they already have the language. Then this intervention will go a long way in addressing the language gap that exists between people without HI and those with HI, as a standard sign language will be taught to HI children during the critical language development stages, and this will have an advantage on science and technology. It will have a cascading effect. Then instructor aptitude. Okay. Instructor aptitude intervention. Teachers are very important, a very important part of SMT instruction for the hearing impaired. So I propose that teacher education institutions should revisit their curriculum to empower teachers to teach SMT to the HI learners. Teacher education may develop instructors, I'm avoiding the train because of the professor's comment, may develop instructors targeted for SMT for the HI learners, who can, however, also teach the learners without HI. Then there may be a diploma or degree in science and technology education for the hearing and visually impaired. Here I'm encompassing all the two, which can empower instructors who will specifically teach learners with these challenges in science and technology. In the absence of such programs, I propose that there should be an intensive human capital development program that is in service. Those teachers who are already there should be intensive development programs for them, to empower them to deal with HI learners in science and technology. Then educational resources interventions. There should be possibilities of SMT textbooks, mainly meant for the HI learners with language that is suitable for them. These hearing impaired learners, they don't learn sentences as full sentences. They learn their sentences fragmented. So if they use textbooks which are being used by learners without HI, it can be a challenge for them. Then there should be a comprehensive science and technology sign language dictionary where science and technology terminologies are translated into standard sign language symbols, which for me is a major intervention that is to be considered. And also the government should fully fund and procure the relevant assistive technologies for SMT laboratories for the HI learners, that is for video experiments with well-transcribed sign language procedures for the HI, so as to, and also they should adequately to the schools where these learners are. Then methodological interventions. For the teaching methods, the first
methodological, we explore possibilities of new methods that can be used in S&T instruction. We have the SynPrint computer system, which transcribes text to print for the hearing impaired. There should be a possibility of modifying it to a speech-to-print to sign language transcription system, so that as a teacher teaches, the computer system can transcribe into print, then to sign language. Then the other considerations, which I have not put there, we develop exhaustive DVD assistive communication support systems in the classes where we have HI learners. Exhaustive DVD assistive communication systems, where we are showing videos, appropriate videos for the HI learners, for example, in experimentations. Then to conclude it, in everything which I've been saying, people with HI have to be included in all the interventions noted above. Yesterday I learned that if you do something for someone without them, you are doing it against them. So hearing impaired learners have to be included in all the interventions. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Dr. Joro. That was a powerful and inspiring scholarly presentation. And I must say, it was voiceless. Because coming from a background of citizenship education, this is really the direction where we should go. Inclusive education, education for all. Education that does not exclude other people. And I'm also glad that you are raising as a recommendation this issue of a dictionary for sign language. We are aware that sign language is one of the official languages of the country. And I think we commend you for that. It's just my comments, but I want to invite further comments and questions. Right, but first, let's just give you another round of applause. I think. Questions, comments, please. I've taken the privilege of giving the comments, some comments myself, because it comes with the territory. We get facilitator. But yes, questions, comments. Right, we've all been rendered voiceless and speechless after that. Any comments?
Yes, just a comment. Yes. I think I found this presentation very inspiring and very critical. That's an area that has been neglected for a long time in this country. So I think this study should really be done in the long term, with essential to really inform our system through this informative study. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I found it quite educating, and I think I learned quite a lot. And it's really a very useful quality of the presentation, in my view.
Thank you, Prof. Any other comments or questions? Just ask a question myself. Dr. Joro, we are here at this university. I've been here. I'll be getting my over 30 years long service award for being here. I haven't, in the Department of Science and Maths Education, we have not had a student with hearing impairment. So it appears there is a problem. It is taught in schools with Emerald High School here, specializing in education for those with hearing impairment. What do you see as the problem? Why are they not making it to tertiary institutions?
I think from my presentation, I made it very clear that these learners have a language impediment, and also we don't have teachers who are qualified to teach science and technology for the hearing impaired. And because of that, acquisition of concepts at very early stages for the hearing impaired is a very difficult uphill task for the hearing impaired learners. Maybe because of the lack of language, because also of the lack of qualified manpower to give these learners the prerequisite skills in science and technology. From my experience, even if you ask a hearing impaired individual, I had this experiment. We had hearing impaired learners. In my environment, we have hearing impaired learners and learners without hearing impairment. You ask them, what do you want to do when you grow up? They will say, hearing impaired. They will say, I want to be a driver, I want to be a teacher, I want to be a farmer. Those are challenging jobs. Whereas those without hearing impairment, they would tell you those jobs which are science-driven. So this shows a gap that we are not developing the scientific skills and the scientific perspective within the hearing impaired learners. And as a result, they cannot develop up to tertiary level in this area.
The actual foundation for science and technology in the Zimbabwean curriculum. Of course, in this workshop, we're talking about primary school level. But for this paper, for this study, the position is a case whereby science and technology is taken to the womb at the point of conception. That creature, whatever it is, it begins to be involved in science and technology. What it means is that as soon as we have life, the very act of life, the very mystery of life, is an item for science and technology. Now the question here is, what would really be the actual foundation for science and technology in the Zimbabwe? One of the main such questions, followed by a series of secondary such questions. I will not waste your time. I will simply provoke your thinking
by saying, the argument is to say, let's have it further down the line of life. If we look at the first question, which aspects within the whole curriculum imply elements of science and technology? The whole of our Zimbabwean curriculum, which aspects imply science and technology? So there was a search for those aspects. The next question was, what could be the relationship between science and technology and the other areas within the curriculum? For this paper, for this study, the struggle was to contextualize science and technology within the whole curriculum. Thirdly, what could be the ideal starting point in the teaching and learning of science and technology? Those are very critical questions for this study. And methodologically, how best could teaching and learning of science and technology be approached from the lowest level to the highest level? I think what the biggest struggle for education is how to approach the teaching of science and technology. And this study was actually based on a desktop on an analysis of various policy documents and the related pieces of literature, chief among which the following were prominent. The curriculum framework itself was the center for this study. The idea was to scrutinize it and find out and dig out those aspects which could actually inform this study. And this was also followed by an extensive review of literature, which then actually helped to unravel several theories to do with science and technology within the context of the school setup. The challenge also was to then look at those pertinent issues theoretically, which had to do with, firstly, the concept of science and technology education. That concept needed to be unraveled. It needed unpacking. Then there was also a need to theoretically place science and technology within the concept of problem solving. Yes, we talk about problem solving, but then where do we situate science and technology in solving problems? If you look at children, even at play, they do solve a lot of problems on their own. And if you look, even an infant, the moment you begin to have life, you begin to have problem solving. Even the act of crying is meant to solve a problem. It is meant to solve a problem. That's what it is. Then the task was also then to relate teaching and learning. Those two concepts, teaching and learning, don't take them for granted. They need to be related. So conceptually, there was a need to dig into those concepts and find out how they would be related. Eventually, ladies and gentlemen, the findings were as follows. And these were actually in line with the secondary research questions. Implications of science and technology were identified in all the science-related areas, like technical subjects, especially the design and technology collection of subjects. There was a lot to do with science and technology. Then, in all syllabi, there were 108 of them which were analyzed, 108 syllabi, within the context of the new curriculum, or a revised curriculum, where all those syllabi, within the cross-cutting themes, there was a lot to do with science and technology. If you know about environment, that's what it is. Then, the relationship between science and technology and the other areas of the curriculum was mainly located within the issue of problem solving. Even language itself, you can't solve a problem without communicating.
So that way, science and technology became totally related to that area. Thirdly, the ideal starting point in the teaching and learning of science and technology was then identified within the context of ECT, and even further back to the prenatal stage. If our system is able to even look at a newly born baby and identify, some systems are able to identify the abilities of a child soon after birth. I know within the Israeli system, they can tell you that this one is a soldier, is a doctor, hours just after birth. By the way the child cries, they can tell you that this child is an engineer. Because they can't afford to waste human resources. What happens in most of our countries, particularly in Africa, we look down upon so many children, few kids. Last weekend I was out in the countryside. There are those newly installed, farming areas where children are raised in compounds, makombo. The majority of those children do not attend school. They just stay at home. They don't even talk about schooling. Now that is a waste of human resources. Some of those children are even gifted scientifically, but you can't tell because they don't go to school. So there are some countries that don't waste that rare resource. Humanity is a rare resource. Right. Then, with the starting point being science and technology at ECT level, the best approach so far identified has been the issue of play. Play, if you begin by harnessing the act of play, play is a very important process in human development. Play actually informs further development in human development. So for this paper, for this study, there's a need to promote play, to make it more meaningful. There is a lot of mysteries that can be unraveled out of play, the act of play. The other time, I observed my own children playing, and among those children, there was my small daughter. Who is it? That time she was playing ECDA. And she came up and said, Dad, you say this car is made out of metal, this tractor is made out of metal, and these wheels are rubber. Komunu, I remember my colleague, children also philosophize. I said, I will find out. And then she said, ice plastic here. Was able to relate this flexibility. And if you really look at it, she was right. Because we all belong to what we call polymeric materials, where we get reduced to plastic. So in a way, it was vague, but she was right. None of the plastic. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you very much. That's my presentation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kwaida, for the presentation. I guess there are some comments or questions. Comments or questions? Children have to see the question.
Russell is on his way. But meanwhile, we will continue with the presentations. As soon as lunch is served, we will take a quick break for lunch and come back so that everything goes well, and by 3 we should be through. There are some very interesting papers still to come, and it's good. We are getting to network, and let's continue the interaction. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, people, parents, for listening. My name is Makwaza. The title of my paper,
Technological Hitch.
before that, my name is Zimbabwe is open for business, and meaning to say that Zimbabwe is open for investment. There are two types of investments. We have short-term investment and we have long-term investment. And when parents hear that there's been some investments, especially of the short-term investments, they want to see queues kumabank appear. They want to see mwana wavo anenge akaita degree pano pauniversity akwana basa asatenge smart card. That is a short-term investment. Then we have long-term investment. Long-term investment is where, that is why I said to you, good morning parents. Because we as parents, we are investors. Zimbabwe goes out there to look for investors, but it forgets that Zimbabwe is full of investors. Parents are the greatest investors. How are parents investors? By virtue of having children. And I'm sure I'm speaking to people who have had children, or I'm speaking to people who have potential to have children. The fact that you have a child, that is an investment. That is a long-term investment, right? The fact that after having your child, you send your child to school, that is another form of investment. Why do you send your child to school? For what? Why do you send your child to school? What do you expect your child to get from school? So what I'm saying is, this workshop is a workshop about investing. It's a workshop about investing into the future. It's a workshop about catching them young in order to invest into the future. me go to, what do I do say? Right. My paper is about interrogating the narrative. And the narrative which is informing this workshop is catching them young. But I think the key question is catching them young for what? Catching them young, it's a buzzword, it's a catchword, it's a slogan, it's a mantra. But the problem with such words is that they are shrouded in distortions, they are shrouded in misconceptions, they are shrouded in assumptions. However, all mantras, all catchwords are grounded in some assumptions. They are grounded in some underpinnings, epistemological underpinnings, axiological underpinnings, metaphysical underpinnings, sociological underpinnings, logical underpinnings. Now, we are going to use philosophical lenses. We are going to use philosophical methodology to unpack the distortions which we think are associated with this buzzword or with this narrative of catching them. Yeah. Specifically, we are going to draw insights from philosophy of Wunu and philosophical analysis. Within philosophy is critical to our unpacking of this narrative. Because philosophy is notorious for asking silly questions. Philosophy is notorious for asking unaskable questions. Philosophy is notorious for asking unasked questions. And indeed, Dr. Kwaira, your child put you in a tight, because your child is a philosopher. She or he asked an unaskable questions. But the interesting thing about this type of questions is because they are philosophical. They are scientific. But what makes them more interesting is that these kind of questions can only be asked by children, right? Elderly people do not ask such questions. Now, what are some of the silly questions which we are going to ask, which are related to catching them young? The question like catching them young for what? That sounds silly. Right? Why catch them? Why should we catch them? Who are young? That sounds very silly to me. Why young? The focus of my paper is on ECD because to me ECD are the only genuinely young people. Right? And they are the only people who can make and raise silly questions. The aim of my paper is to contribute to Zimbabwe's critical quest, not only for more scientists. We don't need more scientists in Zimbabwe, but I think we need quality prospective scientists. Another aim of my paper is to justify the inclusion of Wunu, epistemologies and axiologies into the pedagogy of science teaching, especially at ECD. Epistemologies and axiologies are important. Because we have a tendency of focusing on epistemology at the extent of axiology. We are going to touch on that. Then the last aim of my paper is to contribute to the production of what is skilled and ethical future scientists in Zimbabwe. I think Zimbabwe is crying for the absence of total people, total scientists. Right? This is my argument, ladies and gentlemen. I am saying, notwithstanding the veracity, notwithstanding the wisdom, the soundness of catching them young, we are saying if we catch them young without grounding them in appropriate cultural values, we risk those three things. We risk having more of the same. We risk the fallacy of excellence in irrelevance. That's a beauty. We risk having incomplete scientists. We risk having incomplete engineers. We risk engendering the morality of vice. I have highlighted the word vice because vice can become an ethic. And I think in Zimbabwe, vice has become an ethic. And what we are saying is, even within the scientific space, we also have people who have vices. And we don't want to produce scientists who promote vice. fights, but we want to produce scientists who address fights. Then I go to the next one. Right. The context of my paper is situated within the current curriculum, whereupon we think the current curriculum is trying to produce more scientists, more technicians, more engineers, more mathematicians. But my argument is those people are incomplete. We don't need more mathematicians with no values. We don't need more technicians with no values. We need scientists, doctors who are grounded in appropriate values. Yes, the focus of my paper is on young minds, not young people, by the way, because there are certain young people with old minds. But my focus is on young minds. We are saying young minds have got the potential to be philosophical and scientific. Young minds are objective. Young minds are adventurous. They have no boundaries. They have boundaries both epistemic and physical. That is why they ask those questions like they are inquisitive. They have no limits. They have an insatiable thirst for learning. They are elastic. They are flexible. They are malleable. And these characteristics constitute a scientific mind. And what are we saying? We want to catch these children young so that we nurture and we take advantage of the type of minds that they have. Right. We want to come to the issue of UNU and the Juan. And we are saying the issue of catching them young is not new. But they used to do it. Gabi rakabakuma shuliro. Nzombe huru yakaba murero. The issue of kurera, the issue of kushura, I think it is important. And when we are catching them young, that is exactly what we are doing. But we are not only doing it for its own sake. Mun anfana kurerwa for a purpose. Right? And pawairerwa vana paishurwa vana, they were grounded in values. And that is what we are saying. Our scientists, our mathematicians must be grounded in appropriate values. These are the values. Respect. We want scientists who are humble. We want scientists who are selfless. We don't want crooks. Then I for that one. What are the implications for pedagogy? Basically, I think we need a radical paradigmatic pedagogical shift to change away from emphasizing on skills, to change from emphasizing on epistemology, to also infuse axiology. Not only axiology per se, but axiology which is grounded upon UNO and HVAN. We need responsible scientists. Atidima scientists are not crook. Atidima no paraphonics and put Zimbabwe with Sabachin. I don't want that. We want them to be responsible. Here's my conclusion. Catching them young should be for both skills and values acquisition. It's not about quantity. In my view, we have enough of quantity. We want quality. We want to initiate them into scientific appreciation and mental disposition. They must walk science. They must think science. They must drink science. That's what we are saying. Essentially, we need scientists who are domesticated and grounded in values, virtues, and responsibilities. Essentially, scientists should be one power. Thank you very much. I'll come to the recommendations. We recommend that, I think we need centers of excellence in Zimbabwe. Centers of excellence where we nurture young minds, not young people. There's a difference between young people and young minds. We want to nurture young minds. We want to identify and nurture children with a flair for also need a radical epistemological and axiological paradigm shift in the manner science is taught, especially to learners at ECT. And we want to draw lessons from the Shona indigenous linguistic landscape of Nzombe Uru Yakava Mukurero.
Tinotenda zvikuru zvinafundo makwaza matanga kutaura nyaya yechivanhu, saka ndava kuedza kutaura nerurimi rwamai kwatingangoti rwava kurasika, tava kurushaya. Ndinoyeuchidzwa ndichiteerera hama achadoma mazita, asi pane vakuru vezvematongerwo enyika vanoti kana vachitaura tauya kuarea kwenyu kuzoinitiata madevelopment projects, toda kuti muzova successful. Izvozvo izvo ndokurasika kwechivanhu, asi ndotenda zvikuru nemashoko amatipa. Tokumbira vane mibvunzo nevangangodawo kuwedzera mashoko maviri matatu muzvina fundo vachisaka.
Thank you very much. Well, I don't know whether you want me.
It's fine.
Thank you very much. Well, I was, even when you were presenting yourself, I read more or less the same thing I read in Dr. Makoda's presentation. I read your thesis in your presentation. Then I believe, you see, you could develop more papers from that thesis focusing on this particular subject, science and technology. I felt that Dr. Mokwaza was contradicting himself a bit when he said he was not in the area of science and technology. I think that's what he said. Unless I'm misquoting him, I send him corrected. Because in fact, science itself originates from what was then called natural philosophy. So, philosophy is science. So that's the contradiction I wanted to note. That is a contradiction because when you are talking of science, what are you talking about? Even when you define science or the scientific approach itself, what are you talking about? Philosophy is very much within the definitions of science itself. That's my point.
Thank you, Prof. Further comments, questions? It looks like people are hungry. I have good news. We have a delicious packed lunch just outside, and I'm requesting that so that we're in the interest of time, and also that we meet our intended departure time of about 3. I'd like to invite members to go and take their packed lunches and come back so that I don't know if that is what is called a working lunch or not, but as we munch, and it will help us relax a bit, and also we will have hopefully a light-hearted presentation which will not have us choking on our food. We'll have lunch. So I want to honor our guests, those who are not from UZ, to go first and get their lunch. I'm not sure what options are there, but probably some beef or